The emergency strips were down to 1 in 3 when I felt her go still against my chest. And still is the one thing a veiled child must never be allowed to do. I had her wrapped in the lining of my coat, her small weight tucked under one arm, and her skin, which had been throwing that soft blue light of theirs, faint as a pilot flame, was beginning to dim. Not all at once. A guttering. The glow pulling back into her the way a tide goes out, slow and certain, leaving the shore cold. "No," I told her, "you stay up here with me. I have run the Kesseth works the better part of 40 years. When the company called the seam dead and pulled the Warren crews out, they offered me a berth on the last lift-up. I told them somebody had to mind the pumps until the slurry teams came to close her, and that was true, and it was also true that I had nowhere I wanted to be more than the only place I knew. So they left me the lower levels and a schedule. In 6 hours the slurry would come down the shafts and fill the deep galleries to the brace line, and Kesseth Deep would be sealed for good, with everything still in it. I found the child on the 3rd day of my last watch, in a service crawl off Gallery 9, folded into the gap behind a coolant manifold where the warmth still leaked. I do not know how long she had been there. Her people had worked this seam before mine, generations back, and then they had gone the way everything goes down here, out and not back. She should not have existed. She did, and she was looking at me with eyes too large for the small face around them, and she was not crying because her kind do not cry. They go quiet. That is the danger in them. When a veiled child is lost and cold and alone, the body does not panic. It conserves. It banks the light, slows the breath, and begins what the old Warren hands used to call the drift, a sinking down into a sleep that is meant to be temporary, meant to be ended by a hand and a voice and the heat of kin. Meant to be ended. If no hand comes, the drift goes deep, and then deeper, and somewhere past the deep there is a floor you do not climb back from. No hand had come for her in a long time. I was not kin. I was an old man with bad knees and a coat that smelled of machine oil. But I had a hand, and I had a voice, and I was warm, and I decided that would have to be enough. She did not weigh anything. That was the first thing that frightened me, how little there was to hold. I got her against the warmest part of me, inside the coat, skin to the rough wool, and I talked. I do not remember what I said. The sound of it more than the sense. The light in her steadied, came back up to that pilot flame blue, and her small fingers found a fold of my shirt and closed on it, and I thought, foolishly, that the worst was behind us. Then the strips began to fail. The company had already started cutting power to the lower levels, no sense feeding light to galleries about to be drowned. One bank at a time the lower Warren went dark, and with the dark came the cold, faster than I would have believed, the heat bleeding up out of the rock. And the colder it got, the more her body wanted to do the thing her body was built to do. I felt it start again on the long stair up from 9, the stillness, the dimming, the breath stretching out between breaths until I was counting the gaps and not liking the count. "Stay," I said. "Stay, stay, stay." I shifted her higher, got my hand flat against her back so she could feel the warmth and the words both. The glow flickered, held, sank, held. I had 31 levels to climb, and I was not going to make the lift carrying her like this, feeling her try to leave a little more with every stair. So I stopped on the 12 landing, where the rigging stores were, and I found a coil of line, good polymer rope, the kind we used to run safety tethers on the high catwalks, and I did the only thing I could think to do. I tied her to me. I ran the line around her and around myself and cinched it so there was no slack, so that her chest was against mine and rose when mine rose. I had heard, years back, from a veil rigger who worked the upper seam before they left, that this was how they brought their little ones back from the drift in the deep cold, not with medicine but with another body lashed close, breathing for 2 until the small one remembered how. I had thought it a story. I was out of better ideas, and a story was what I had. "You feel that?" I said. "That's me breathing, you match it. In, out, you match me, little one, and you don't let go." And we climbed. Halfway up, the comm at my collar crackled. Control from the surface, a voice I half knew. They had moved the slurry forward 2 hours. I was to leave whatever was slowing me and ride the lift up clean. Those were the words, ride it clean, because they were not going to hold the schedule for one man on the lower stair. I could hear, under the voice, somebody else saying he's got something with him, and the first voice asking what, and a pause, and then telling me again to come up clean. I reached up and thumbed the comm off. Some things you do not argue with. You just stop listening to them. I will not pretend it was anything but slow. 30 levels of stair with my heart going like a bad pump, the dark coming up the shafts behind us and the cold waiting ahead. Every few landings the drift would reach for her again, and I would feel the line go light against my chest where her breath should have been lifting it, and I would stop and press my hand to her and breathe loud and slow and stubborn until she came back up to match me. Each time she came back slower. Each time the blue came up a little dimmer. Somewhere around the 20 I stopped feeling the cold in my own hands, and I knew that was its own kind of trouble, and I kept climbing anyway, because the schedule does not care about an old man's hands. Far below, I heard the first deep groan of the slurry lines charging. They were early. They were always going to be early. At the 28 landing I went down on one knee and could not at once get up, and in the dark I felt her go nearly all the way out. The line lay slack. No rise, no fall. The glow was a coal under ash. I want to tell you I said something worth remembering. I did not. I put my mouth close to where her ear would be, and I said her people's word for stay. The rigger had taught me that, too, one word sail, which is stay, and is also here and is also I have you. All three in the one sound, and I said it over and over with my hand on her back and my own breath dragging hers along by main force. An old man hauling a child up out of a hole hand over hand with nothing but a rope and a word, and the refusal to let the rope go. And the rope pulled back. A breath, then another. The line lifted against my chest. The blue came up not bright, but up, and her fingers found my shirt again and held, and I got my legs under me because there was nothing else to do, and we climbed the last 3 levels into the gray light of the lift gallery as the slurry came roaring into the deep behind us and Kesseth Deep began, at last, to close. The lift was still keyed to my hand. It always would be. I rode it up with her lashed to me, breathing for 2, and when the doors opened on the surface staging the slurry foreman took one look at the old man and the small blue light tied to his chest and did not say a word about schedules. They wanted to take her, to put her in a warmer, to do it properly, and I let them after, but not for a while. For a while I just stood in the wind off the staging yard with the rope still around the both of us, and I felt her breathe and match me, and not let go. She is grown now near enough. She has her own word for me these days, and it is not sail, but that was the first one she ever gave back that night on the landing, a whisper into the wool of my coat with the dark pouring in behind us. Sail, stay, here, I have you. I did, I do, I will.